Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fresh Air Bookworm, where we discuss books while being outside. And finally, it's not minus 30 or minus 40, so we can enjoy outside a little bit more while the sun is out for a short period of time. Yeah, so today we're going to go through the books I read in January and just discuss them a little bit and how I felt about them. So let's go. Okay, so I read I read 7 books and quite a variety of genres for this month. The first book I read was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This one, I gave this one a 3 stars. It is a good book for people that like those kind of books that are kind of I don't know how to describe it, but it's basically about this woman who's dealing with chronic illness, and she has a near death experience that makes her realize she needs to change her life. She needs to make some changes. So she writes a list. She's very, very type A oriented. So she makes a list. She's got step by step how she's going to make her life better. And ticking these boxes off on her list are what's going to help her get a life. So as she's trying to tick the boxes off this list, she realizes it's a little bit harder for her than what she initially thought, and she recruits the help of her landlord, handyman. Now, he's not the landlord, no. He's at least a handyman, so he lives on the property. He's like maintenance man, who's kind of dark and brooding and all the things that are in typical love interest. So she enlists his help, and of course they fall for each other, but there's like ups and downs, like it's not just straightforward. Yeah, it's very to the book, like it was very good. It was nice to have this new representation for somebody with chronic illness, so that was really good to see. That was really nice. Just for me, I just wanted a little bit more, but it's still a good book. I think most people would like it if they read it, so I wouldn't not put it on your list, but it just wasn't quite for me. Not at this moment. Also, we're testing a new microphone, and I hope it's okay. My last one was not the greatest, but we'll deal with that, and I think this one's going to be an improvement. It's even got the little fluffy. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's so fluffy. I just want to rub my face on it because it's fluffy, but I won't. I'll try not to. No promises. And also, yes, I do have my Halloween decorations still up. Yes, I love Halloween. Will they be staying? Yes, because it brings me joy. Okay, so the next books that I read, they were both graphic novels, so they're both the Heartstopper books by Alice Oseman. So I read volume 2 and volume 3 this month, or in January. So I'll just talk about them broadly because they're in the middle of a series. I don't want to give too much away. I gave these both 4 stars. I really enjoy this series so far. I'm just waiting for the 4th one at this point, and I think there's a 5th one. Not sure if there's a 6th one, but I'm excited at least to read the next 2 that I know are out. This follows 2 characters, Nick and Charlie, who deal with having feelings for each other. They end up becoming, well, later in the series, they get into a relationship, and so then they deal with the trials and tribulations that come with that. But it's such a heartwarming story that you just love it. Like there's not like it's not like massive stakes. that are happening. It's just what people go through when there's young love, and it's just so heartwarming. I love both the characters. They're both so great. So I'm just excited to see where they end up. In the second one, it's more dealing with what they want to define their relationship as more than friends and things like that. So that's just when you think about when you were a teenager, all the nervous feelings you had of, oh, did I say the right thing? And all these, like, are they still going to like me if because I said this and I did that? Like, that was so embarrassing. All these things that you look back when you're a teenager and you're like, it's okay. It's okay. You're good. So those are great reads. They're really easy. They're really quick to finish. I finished both of them in less than a day. Just because they're graphic novels doesn't mean that they're not good reads. I love them. I love different graphic novels. These were no exception. The artwork is great. I love it. Yeah, it's a great series. And so the next book I read was a nonfiction. So this one was recommended to me. It is called Stiff by Mary Roach. And it basically goes through the history of cadavers and how they've been used for medical studies and other kinds of studies throughout history, and the pros and cons of using cadavers. And it was super interesting. I'm a science girl, so it's an obvious that I would like something like that. But just the way that Mary Roach tells you about these cadavers, she does it in such like a dry, humorous way that you can't just help but like, I gotta keep listening. And then she's throwing facts in here that I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that. And yeah, it's just one after another. I was recommending it to my boyfriend, who gets very squeamish when you talk about like cadaver stuff. So I don't think he's going to read it, but I kept telling him, you need to read this book because it was so interesting. And yeah, there was so much information that I didn't know about and things that I feel like I heard somewhere, but just to get more context on like how we use cadavers for like crash test dummies. We were using that for a bit. Yeah, and different things and how we can use different animal bones are kind of similar to humans, like one that sticks out. And emu hip is very similar to a person's hip, which I was very interested at. So they did studies on emu hips to kind of be to further better surgery for things like that for your hip. Those really stuck out to me. So if you're ever interested in learning about the history of cadavers, I definitely recommend you pick it up. It was a fun read. It is quite detailed, so if you're squeamish, err on the side of caution. It really goes into details on how decomposing works. And so there is no shying away from what goes on in that. So just a forewarning. The next book that I read was also a recommendation. It's called Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa. It's the first book. I think I'm not sure how many are in the series. I gave this one 2 stars. It's not my jam. I uh I was trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, but there were a lot of things that I kept getting hung up on, like the age thing. I don't know why authors seem to be doing it. It's not the first book that I've read in the last few years where the girl is 15 or 16 and the guy is like 30, or in this case with it being Fae, he's like 400 years old, and there being a power dynamic that doesn't need to be there. Yeah, so I wasn't a fan of that. It really bounces back from the past to the future or present time of how our main character ends up tied to this person that he's called the bargainer, and she ends up having like 300 bargains that she has to pay back for eventually after time because she met him when she was so young and she wanted to keep seeing him, that she kept taking more and more things so that she was like, I'll pay it back later, whatever. At least I get to see him. So there was like a lot of things that didn't quite like about it. Even the spice scenes. There's some words that are quite prominent in the spice world that I hear it and I'm like, "Bleh." Yeah. So that's how I felt about those. There wasn't anything special about them. The only thing that it had going for it was I was excited about the main character and how she was a siren. So that was cool when you actually had a scene where she actually used that power. That was the only thing. That was the only thing that I liked about it. And then there'd be parts where she's like, "Do you love me?" And he says, "Yes, I've loved you as long as I've known you." And she's like, "What does that mean?" And so it gets very frustrating because I'm like, "Literally just said, I love you." And you're like, "What?" I could go on and on, but I won't, because those are other things that kind of drive me up the wall. So it wasn't for me. Some people might like it. Apparently, the next book is supposed to be better, but I don't think I'm gonna waste my time with it. Who knows? We'll see. If I want to torture myself, I might do it. But right now, no, I won't. And so the last book that I read in January was The Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This one, I've been hearing people talk about it online on YouTube and on Instagram, and how it's a book that everybody should read. And I totally agree. I gave it 4 stars. It was a fantastic read. It really was fitting to read it at this moment because the book, Octavia wrote it in 1993, and it takes place in starting end of 2004, 2005, and then continues on, but that's kind of where we start off with. So it was very fitting to read that at this moment, especially with everything that's been going on right now in the world. Sometimes it was just a little too close to what's going on, but it was still very interesting. It follows this girl, Lauren, while she's living with her family in LA that's on fire. Strange. um, but so it's kind of futuristic where the world is just like climate crisis has reached an all-time peak. Like, people are building walls around their neighborhoods to stay safe because things have become so chaotic in the world that it's like a futuristic dystopian reality. So while she's living in this home, she also has this gift that she's super empathetic. Like, if she were to hit somebody or if she sees somebody being hit, she feels that, and it like she's in pain and stuff. So part of that leads her to kind of developing a new religion, essentially, called Earthseed. And so she's taking this religion and she's trying to follow it, and eventually she has to leave the home for reasons that if you read it you'll know. And as she meets people, she kind of brings them in and teaches them the way of Earthseed as they're trying to make their way north, where things are supposed to be better. And just like the journey there, where you see all the devastation in and all the chaos in this world, and how she tries to relay the fact that things need to change, and that's part of her religion, is that things change and we need to change with it. Yeah, so it's very interesting. It's very character oriented. It was interesting to hear how, oh, it's the helicopter. Yeah, it was interesting to see how she came to her religion, how she came about writing it, and things like that. Yeah, it was just a very interesting read. I think everybody should read it at some point. There is a second book. I would like to read it. I'm curious to see where we go. I've heard that it's doesn't take place exactly where we leave off in the book, and so you can see how her religion takes off. But I'm very excited to continue the book, the series, see where we go with it and what kind of other insights we can learn from it. So I realized that I can't count, I guess, because while I was filming, I thought, oh, I said all 7 of the books I read. Can't believe how confused I got because I left my favorite of this month out. Maybe because I'm a little distracted because I'm reading the 3rd book right now. So my favorite of January was The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. So I read the first book, The Poppy War, back in July or August, and loved it. It was so good. I really not usually like a war military strategy person, but this was like top notch. So after reading that first book, I was really excited. I was on hold for the longest time to get the second book. And then I got it, and it was a little bit of a wait, who is this person and who is that person? Just because there was some time between the first and second book. So it did take me a little bit to remember who everyone was and where we left off. But it was still very fast paced considering that this book is very long, every single one in the series. And I really enjoyed it. It was such a fun ride. It was so interesting because we're following Rin. We're continuing to follow her after the end of the 3rd Poppy War that happened in the first book. I'm not gonna give too many spoilers. I'm gonna try and avoid it. We'll see. But she's very much dealing with guilt and grief after the things that she had to do to end the war. So she has to deal with that and also deal with her addiction to opium to suppress the phoenix within her. So it's very much a really interesting journey that she has to go on to be able to go back to normal. She's not like a normal character, which is probably why I really like her. She's so morally gray because of her worldviews and how she sees the decisions that she has to make in war. Because sometimes, as like a person making these crazy decisions, you gotta really you gotta section yourself off from any feelings to make the hard choices. And so she is quite morally gray, and I think that's what I love so much about her. Yeah, so we follow her as she's dealing with this. She's also on a mission to get revenge on the people that betrayed her in the first book, and she ends up having to join forces with the Dragon Warlord. So their goal is to conquer and create a new republic, the Dragon Republic. So yeah, so she ends up throwing herself back into war because she doesn't know anything different. That's the only way she thinks she can cope. So she is dealing with this addiction and grief, all while being thrust into another war that she will figure out that maybe the sides that she thought were the good sides, or maybe not the sides she thought they were. So definitely a great sequel to the first book. I'm currently reading the 3rd one and also love it, so hopefully you'll be hearing about that soon. Yeah, definitely pick up this series. It's such a great read. It's so cool how R.F. Kuang can use 20th century Chinese history and incorporate that into a fantasy world. It's yeah, it's very cool. I like kind of the history part of it, so it'd be interesting to maybe study more of Chinese history and see how accurate it goes, or if she's just kind of used it as like a general theme, or if some of these things in a sense have actually happened. I'd be very curious to learn more about that. Yeah, so pick it up. It's a good one. All right, so that's my my 7 reads from January, and I'm glad we were able to do it before the sun went completely down, so that's great. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Remember to support your local library and get outside if you can. If it's nice enough outside, if it's too cold, it's okay. We're okay to have inside days, and that's all right. So, yeah, take care of yourselves out there.